What's going on, guys? Today, I'm going to be taking you through this little short ebook that I put together on the basics of training and nutrition and basically how to get started with all that stuff. It can be really confusing in the beginning, especially, if you don't know where to get research from or anything like that. I'm basically just going to walk through the entire thing, like I said, the training, nutrition, give you little, you know, I guess, direction of what to do with all that stuff. So, without further ado, let's get started. So, just to give you a little introduction to this ebook is for those who are seeking more information on training and nutrition. This ebook packs 7 years of knowledge into one. So, for those who don't know, I've been training for 7 years now. I started training when I was 13 years old. And basically, I'm just going to share all the knowledge I accumulated and all the mistakes that I made throughout the years of my training so you don't make the same mistakes when you start training. For a little background information as well, my father was a big advocate for my training journey, whatever you want to call it. And as I went on through the years, I started to learn more about training and nutrition. So the first thing you always want to look at when you start training or you start, getting into thinking about training is what are your goals, right? You have to narrow down your goals moving forward. The biggest thing I see is people are like, okay, I want to lose body fat. I want to build as much muscle as possible. I want to get as strong as possible. People have too many conflicting goals. Okay. So you have to say, okay, I'm going to narrow down my goals, right? And then work on that for a while until I can move on to the next thing. That's what you have to do. Because if you're doing too many conflicting things, you're kind of not going to get anywhere. Your body is just going to be in a state of confusion almost. Don't get me wrong, you can do a bunch of things, but you're not going to get good at that one thing, right? If your goal is to lose body fat and build muscle, you can do that, especially as a beginner, right? But if your goal is to build muscle, lose body fat, do all this, fancy cardio stuff, or, do a ton of swimming, whatever it is, you are doing too much. You're doing too much at once, right? And then there isn't going to be any level of sustainability, which is not ideal. So look in the mirror, figure out what you want to do with your body, and then you could go forward from there. That is the first thing, the most crucial thing. So now the first section, I'm starting with nutrition here because nutrition is super overlooked. People do not care much about nutrition, right? They just care about, assuming you're doing bodybuilding, just lifting the weights, and then lifting the weights is going to get you the physique you want. The lifting the weights part of building a good physique is like 30%, or I would even argue 20% of what you have to do. What you put in your body is 70 or 80%, right? Nutrition is that's what's going to dictate what your physique looks like. So basically, just to get the three main things out of the way with nutrition, you have your carbs, you have your fats, and you have your protein. These three macronutrients, those, by the way, are called macros. That's what's going to make up your calories. Okay, the proteins, the carbs, and the fats. That's what you want your diet to pretty much contain, those three macros, right? So the question is, what you're probably asking is, how do I even determine how many carbs, how many fats, how much protein, how many calories I need to eat? You probably don't even know how to measure it. Like, what do I do to measure it? So, first off, let's just get the basics out of the way, okay, before we jump to any sort of conclusion, right? The amount of calories in each gram of macronutrient varies from one another. Okay, so the calories between carbs and fats in a gram is different, right? So it sounds a little confusing in the beginning, but let me explain. 1 gram of protein is 4 calories. 1 gram of carbohydrates is 4 calories. However, 1 gram of fats is 9 calories. It's basically a little bit over double the amount of calories. So that is very important because if you overindulge on fats, you're basically going to have half the volume of food probably, right? Let's just say it's that, cut and dry, simple. You're going to have half the volume of food. And it's very easy to overindulge on fats because a lot of foods contain a lot of fats. So now that we got that out of the way, now that you know that 1 gram of protein is 4 calories, 1 gram of carbs is 4 calories, and 1 gram of fats is 9 calories, how do you figure out your calories, right? How do you do that? Here's what you're going to do. You're going to start tracking your calories, okay? You're going to start tracking your calories to maintain your weight, okay? Let's say you just started. In the beginning, you're going to have to pick a bit of an arbitrary number, right? In order to figure out with those number of calories, are you gaining weight? Are you losing weight? Or are you maintaining your weight? Okay. You can do that. That's option one. Or the second option is it's very unlikely, but you track what you have normally on a daily basis and see how many calories that is. I would track that for about a week and then see how many calories that is. The problem is people are not eating the same thing every day, especially if you're not in a certain routine. You're probably just eating whatever you want to eat. So, one day it could be 1,000 calories, one day it could be 3,000 calories, right? So that's the problem. That is the issue. So the arbitrary number is probably the better option. Again, it depends on the individual. But either way, you can choose both. You're still going to get to the same goal. So pick a number. Let's say you go with the first option. Pick an arbitrary number. I picked 2,400 calories, right, just as an example. And the way I broke down the macronutrients was pretty simple. Let's start off with the protein. The protein, let's say you are a 200-pound individual, right? You are going to have 200 grams of protein. That's it. Protein's already figured out, okay? The carbs and the fats can vary, right? Obviously, you don't want to have like super high carbs and then very little fat or vice versa. Okay, you want to balance it out. This is a good balance right here. So, for example, the way I figured out my carbs and my fats is I did 200 times 4 because there's 200 grams of protein. So you do the 200 times the 4, which every gram of protein is 4 calories, 800 calories right there. Then, basically, now that 800 calories are ticked off, you figure out the difference. So 2,400 minus the 800, you're down to 1,600. Now it's up to you how you're going to distribute that 1,600. So here I picked not an arbitrary, but a decent range for carbs to ensure I have enough energy. I picked 240, right? Pick 240. Did 240 times 4, 960. That's 960 calories worth of carbohydrates. Okay? And then I figured out the difference again. and I realized I had 630 calories left. Divide the 630 by 70, excuse me, by 9. You figure out how many grams of fats you need for the day. And that's it. Now the grand total is a little messed up here. It's 2390. Call it 2400. Basically the same thing. The 10 calories are not going to make that much. They're not going to make a difference at all, to be honest with you. So that's how you figure out your calories and the macros you need to consume on a daily basis. Okay? Section 2 of nutrition: how much to eat, what to eat, when to eat. Now, a lot of people complicate this, okay? You can eat as many meals as you want in the day, right? You could have one meal, you could have two meals, you could have three meals, you could have four meals. It all depends how you break it down. However, I will tell you that if you have one or two meals, the macro breakdown of it's not going to be ideal, because there's no way if you have one meal, you're going to get 200 grams of protein, 240 grams of carbs, and 70 grams of fat. It's just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. There's no way you're going to be able to have that much volume of food at once. Okay? So, my suggestion is see what your day looks like. See how you could break down the meals pretty evenly. See what time you train. That way, you could break down, the meal, or, the calories into meals the way you want to break it down at the end of the day. Okay? And again, for the tracking part, in order to figure out your calories, you know, you have a 5 to 7 day span of figuring out what calories maintain your weight. That is the second option that I mentioned earlier. If, assuming your food is consistent on a daily basis, okay? You can't have a 3,000 calorie day and then a 2,000 calorie day. There's no way you're going to figure out the maintenance, right? The only way I can imagine you can figure out the maintenance is track for those 7 days and then get the average of those 7 days. But even then, that's kind of it's not going to be that accurate. You're going to have to, it's a trial and error process. Okay? So that's how you figure out your base calories, pretty much. Now, your goal is probably, once you figure out your calories, what do I need to do? Do I need to bulk? Do I need to cut? What do I need to do? Do I even need to maintain? So just to give some reference here, if you're going to bulk up, I wouldn't go anywhere above 250 to 350 calories above your maintenance. Okay? And here is why. The reason I would not do that is because you're going to pretty much build up so much body fat that it's going to be such a pain to take off, and it's not actually doing anything for you, right? A lot of people have this idea that, oh yeah, the more I eat, the more muscle you put on. To an extent, perhaps, but just tacking on 1,000 calories a day isn't actually going to do anything, okay? That doesn't actually, it's not going to do anything, right? You're overdoing it at that point. Assuming you're like this hard gainer and you can't literally put on weight for the life of you, I wouldn't do that, right? And I highly doubt that's the case. If you're a hard gainer, you're probably just not tracking food right, or you have days where you're inconsistent, you don't realize it. Okay? So start tracking. And if you're going to bulk up, it's like a lean bulk, right? You don't want to just pack on the calories for no reason. You don't need all those calories to build muscle at the end of the day, right? According to the literature we have, you could build muscle during a cut, right? Obviously, it depends where you are in your stage of lifting, but you can do that. That is possible. That's why I don't think you should be overindulging, with your food or your calories, whatever. If you're cutting, I would suggest doing the same thing. I would probably reduce the calories between 250 to 300 to 350. If you really want to do a slow cut, you could take away 150 calories at a time. I mean, that is small, so you're going to see very small change. But again, if you want to retain as much muscle as possible, I would do that. However, as a beginner, I would not recommend cutting anyways, because if you're, you know, you barely have any muscle on your frame, there's not really much you're going to display on your physique other than just losing body fat, right? If you're really, if you're heavy on body fat, then yes, I would recommend cutting down a little bit combined with the lifting and, maybe doing a little bit more physical activity during the day. Sure. But if you're just a normal build, like a skinny fat build, I guess, I would just stick to maintenance, right? Maybe a bit of a bulk, but that's it. I would not do anything more than that. Okay. So overall, let me conclude that part real quick. Skinny fat, I would either stick with the maintenance calories for a while, right, with the proper macro breakdown, or after a while, if you want to increase your calories, I would increase it maybe like by 100 or 150. Nothing crazy. Nothing crazy. Okay. If you're really high in body fat, then I would recommend doing probably a bit of a cut. Stick to the maintenance for a week or two and then cut down the calories a little bit and see what happens. You have to consistently track what's going on with your weight, combined with the lifting and the physical activity. Okay. Now, the training, you're probably wondering, okay, how am I going to structure my routine? Right? What routine should I even do? Like, how much volume should I do? Like, what is volume? Right? So, let's start off with the training routine. These are the 3 training routines I would do as a beginner. You can do push pull legs and repeat that push pull legs, push pull legs. So that's 6 sessions a week. You could do upper lower, which would be 4 sessions a week because upper lower. Or you can do full body, which is 3 sessions a week, okay, of just full body. Personally, the one I recommend the most is the full body. Number one, the full body is more sustainable, okay? Because in the beginning, you're not going to be doing that much. Ideally, you're not going to need a whole lot of volume, or let's just use an easier term, a whole lot of sets and reps and all these things to actually build muscle, okay? You're going to need the bare minimum. You don't need a crazy amount of stuff to do in the beginning. So I would probably do full body. Again, it's going to be very easy, 3 times a week, and just get your muscles used to that. Also, the form. The form is crucial, right? When you do these first few sessions, you want to make sure your form is as perfect can be, okay? Because the goal is to build muscle. And the way to do that is through perfect form and engaging the muscle, okay? Putting the proper tension on the muscle. So you really want to practice that in the beginning. You're not trying to set, personal records in the beginning when you start lifting, okay? So form is key. We're going to go back into that more though. But first I want to explain what volume is. Okay, so volume has 4 major components: number of sets, the frequency, number of reps, and intensity. So you're probably asking, okay, how do I even determine how many sets, how much frequency, how many reps, how the intensity should be? How do I determine that in the beginning? Very simple. Okay. When you start training, okay, you want to start with the lowest number of sets you can do, right? Not super low, but I would recommend starting maybe 3 sets. 3 sets of 10 reps each exercise. That's it. That's it. That's all I would do. Right? In the beginning, again, the form, you want to do is the repetitions And you want to make each repetition as perfect as possible with perfect form. Okay? So that the more you do it, the more second nature it is to you. Okay? That's what we're focusing on in the beginning. Just getting the form down correctly. Okay? The intensity the intensity in the beginning does not need to be super high, nor does the frequency. The frequency does not need to be super high. So for example, if you're doing push pull legs, that's why you can do push pull legs, but I don't really recommend it in the beginning. You can, but think about push pull legs. You're going to do 2 push days, 2 pull days, 2 leg days. You're not going to need that as a beginner. Okay, you're not going to need all of that as a beginner. So I recommend starting the full body, or if you really want to train a little bit more, do the upper lower. So 3 to 4 sessions a week. That's it. Okay, so that way the intensity is going to be low, the frequency is going to be low, the number of sets is going to be low, and the number of reps overall accumulated in the week is going to be low. Okay, so you got that part down. Now, this is just a little chart of how a normal training session would look, or sorry, a training um, block, right? A mesocycle, I guess, um, would look. So this is over about an 8 or 9 week period of training. Okay, and this is how I would go through a training program. Let's say you start week 1, and this is all for one exercise. Okay, let's say you do. Let's just start easy. Let's say you do one exercise and it's 3 sets. You know what? Scratch that. Let's say each exercise you're doing is 3 sets. 3 sets, okay? You do 3 sets one week on that exercise. Then you say, okay, the next week I want to increase some volume. You add another set, okay? Week 3, I think I could push it a little bit more. You could do 4 sets and some partials. Partials meaning not doing the full range of motion. You do partials at the end of your set. Week 4, 4 sets, the partials, and maybe a drop set. Week 5, 4 sets, partials, and a double drop set. I don't know why I have a $sign there, but I meant to put a 4. Week 6, once you accumulated all that volume over the 5 weeks, you want a deload week. You want to decrease the volume, okay? You're not going to be able to keep up this number of sets, number of reps, the intensity, and the frequency, okay? You're going to have to give your body a chance to recuperate, rest, and pretty much come back stronger the next time. Take a deload week, okay? That's what I would do, because you're just not going to be able to keep all this up. Then come back again, start 3 sets again, then 4, and on and on and on, right? That the cycle repeats itself. That's pretty much what you want your programs to look like throughout your training, right? In the beginning, I don't suggest this. If you are a beginner, I do not suggest this. I wouldn't start doing something like this until you get into that intermediate kind of veteran level, okay? Because you might not adapt to this volume quite nicely. You know, your body might just take such a beating that you might have to spread this volume out a little bit longer. You might have to do an 8-week program of just like this 5-week program you see right here, right? Just this half right here. You might want to extend that to 8 weeks. So every other week you increase the volume, okay? Because you might not be able to handle all this. So I would do that probably. No, well, most likely I would do that. So as a beginner, like I said, you're not going to increase the volume this frequently. There's just no way your body is going to be able to handle it in the beginning. In the beginning, focus on engaging the muscles, slowly adapting to the training that you're putting it through. So, a good example is, and by the way, I am not advising this at all, is let's say you're drinking alcohol and it only takes you 2 or 3 drinks to get completely drunk. Okay? At some point, your body is going to adapt to that. So, how do you get that same effect that you had when you had those 2 or 3 drinks and then got completely wasted? You got to have more. You got to have a fourth drink, right? And then slowly the requirement of drinks increases over time. Same thing. Same thing. This is, by the way, if you're intermediate, moderate training. Okay, that's it. That's what you need to do. I am not advising this again. Please, I'm not advising that you do this. Okay, do not drink. Do not drink. I mean, drink, but number one, follow the law, and don't become an alcoholic. Okay, so yeah, that's it. I mean, that's pretty much the base of training in the beginning. That is the base of training, right? Just I want you to take away these points. Narrow down your goal. Are you trying to lose body fat? You're trying to build muscle? Then start with a basic routine. I would suggest a full body routine. Figure out your calories, right? I've told you the way to do that. You could track for the 5 to 7 days, figure out your maintenance, then see what you would do from there, right? Maybe you could even, what I would do is probably just stick at that maintenance for a while and see maybe your body composition changes because of the macro breakdown of the food and the physical activity and the lifting and all that stuff. So you might not have to even do anything with it. Okay? And the training volume, keep the same for a while as a beginner, right? I would not increase the training volume as soon as you start lifting because it's just going to be too much. Your body doesn't need all that to build muscle in the beginning. So I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have any questions, just comment down below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.